right, ladies, saddle up.
She's a woman, but she still manages to make that sound like an insult.
Okay, let's be honest with ourselves. Movie adaptations of video games have typically been pretty awful. So when I heard there was a live-action Monster Hunter movie coming to the big screen, I was skeptical to say the least. Monster Hunter is a gaming franchise that I will always hold near and dear to my heart. I played a good handful of games in the series, but none have matched my affinity for Monster Hunter Freedom Unite on the PSP. I've spent almost 2,000 hours on just that game. I've always considered it probably one of my favorite video games of all time, and it's easily the most time I've ever spent into a game. Every weekend, me and one of my best friends I would consider like a brother to me would go over to either his house or mine to just play Monster Hunter together all weekend, from sun up to sundown, only taking breaks to eat or sleep, and we did this for years. Even playing solo to grind further to completing the game. We had to be the G-ranked Hunters of Legends. I mean, I soloed Ukenloose, which is something I still consider one of my greatest gaming achievements in my life. The thing I love so much about Monster Hunter is the grind to power, something I normally hate in other games, but in this series it's so well balanced that it's not only challenging, but it's rewarding to grow without feeling impossible. Every time you kill that giant monster, it feels like a true feat. The amount of adrenaline I would get from that objective clear cutscene with the triumphant music after a long onslaught battle has been unmatched in any other game. The core gameplay of Monster Hunter is you start off small and build up to legendary monsters that are truly intimidating. You craft or upgrade new armor and weapons by collecting items or killing monsters to hopefully get the item that you need for that awesome new sword or armor set to help you advance further into the game. The stories to the game are pretty much always there's some big monster terrorizing something and you need to kill it when you're ready. It's simple because the main focus of these games is solely on the gameplay. The thrill of tracking down that monster, having an epic boss fight with it, then building the kick-ass armor set out of its dead remains. To me, Monster Hunter has always shined the brightest as a co-op game. To coordinate with friends to take down giant monsters is so satisfying and fun. Me and my buddy had Freedom Unite down to a science. We worked as a well-oiled machine to take down literally every monster in the game multiple times to craft whatever we wanted. We were decorated hunters, and the fact that I sold off my PSP along with Monster Hunter will forever haunt me as one of the worst decisions I've ever made in my life. So many hours wasted. With my love of the franchise, I knew going into this film I should go in with an open mind. Try not to think about the games, but only what the movie presents. When I found out Paul W.S. Anderson and Milla Jovovich was involved, I became curious because this is the same team that made the Resident Evil movies, and I actually really enjoy those. Now, with a grain of salt, I am not a fan of the Resident Evil games, but to me the movies were just fun popcorn flicks that made for good background noise. Then I saw that Tony Jaa hopped on the project along with Ron Perlman.
Amen, Jesus.
And the release of the first image for this movie made me pretty excited. It looked like Monster Hunter. Then the army image was released. With that one image, every bit of steam was taken out of me. Monster Hunter is a game in a series set in a different world and time. Why would the military be involved? That seems so stupid. Then I watched the trailer, and while the CGI and the monster designs looked incredible and faithful, I just kept thinking about how stupid it was to include a modern military, not to mention the idea of dimensional portals. With all this new information, I was no longer excited about the film, but I knew I was going to watch it anyway because it's a Monster Hunter movie. The only thing I can do is try to watch it without the games in mind, and I will be talking about spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled on the movie, please check out the movie beforehand, but I feel like I need to spoil this movie to kind of give my gripes about it. So, spoiler warning. The film opens with an awesome scene out in the desert as a sand ship is trying to cross. Instantly, I felt the game come to life. The CGI out of the gate is stunning. The score is amazing. It feels epic while keeping it very reminiscent of like video game synth styles. We see different characters on the boat, and the attention to detail in the wardrobes shows that the creators studied the games when it comes to set design. The Diablos shows up and attacks the ship, and the Diablos looks amazing, truthful to the game while also looking realistic. This scene, while being short, is epic and heart-pounding and such a great way to start off the film. Tony Jaa's character gets knocked off the ship, and now we cut to the military.
Dum 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 dum.
This is honestly incredibly jarring. It's such a stark contrast that feels so stupid compared to what we just watched. And we just watched some like crazy fantasy stuff. So to get knocked into like this military scene, it's just so weird. Not to mention that all the dialogue between the troops feel just generic macho bullshit dialogue.
All right, ladies, saddle up.
She's a woman, but she still manages to make that sound like an insult.
Alpha Team, which is led by Milla, is looking for Bravo Team when a storm engulfs them. This scene feels like Anderson asked to copy George Miller's homework, but George Miller's like, well, don't make it too obvious. The storm rifts them into the Monster Hunter world by a violent car flipping scene that should have probably killed everybody, but everyone's fine for the most part. They find some glass on the ground next to the burned bodies of Bravo Team, and this is such an awesome little detail. Well, guess what? Diablo shows up because nobody shows up on his turf. I love that one of the main monsters is Diablos because it's just such an awesome monster. Anyway, the Diablos does Diablo shit, and we get another car rolling scene. Dude, the CGI in this movie is just stunning. They try to run from it, but we get another car rolling scene. Everybody is fine again. Well, I guess not. Tony Jaa decides to help them out a little bit. It was enough to let them escape into a cave. I love the fact that Diablos breaks its horn. In the game, you can like break horns, claws, wings, cut off tails, all kinds of stuff. So to see this little like nod to the game of breaking off parts of the monsters is just cool. It's real fan servicey, but it's cool. Anyway, this big gross spider shows up, jabbing Milla and knocking her out. I don't recognize these monsters, but I guess it's the Nersalia from Monster Hunter 4. And while I played 4, I didn't play a ton of it, so I must have just not have gotten to it or just forgot about them. I'm glad though they didn't like make up any monsters for this movie. They just like kept monsters from the game. They are dropping like flies. Milla wakes up in a web sack surrounded by bones. This scene is honestly kind of spoopy. She sees her team strung up next to her, but they're all dead. The design of the Nersalia's nest is honestly really awesome. This scene is legit creepy and would make for an awesome setting for a horror film. I mean, this scene is more horrifying than most horror films out today. Well, T.I. shows up and he's still alive.
Oh my god!
Oh my god! I wanted an SOS pad, like a steel wool, like get a Sally Field shower from Silkwood.
What the fuck is that? Nope, that's a bunch of nope. I've watched this scene multiple times now, and every time it legit makes me cringe. What a horrible way to go. Milla barely escapes and just breaks down from the trauma and the horrors that she just experienced. This whole section was honestly really well done. I've seen a lot of Paul W.S. Anderson's films, and there's moments and scenes in this film that are the best of his career, hands down. Milla then runs into Tony, and they duke it out. Like, why though? He literally just a few scenes ago helped them escape from the Diablos. And this is honestly actually one of my least favorite scenes in the film. Not only does it not really make sense, but the action's handled really poorly. The set pieces with the monsters are really well shot, almost slow in nature, and isn't afraid to show you everything. This scene is all about quick cuts and shaky cam and feels really juxtaposing to other set pieces. It feels like those like low budget action flicks that typically suck. And the next scene is really weird too. Tony eats and drinks in front of Milla, and it's kind of like in this weird braggadocious way. It's really awkward. Milla escapes, and then again we have another awkward fight scene until they roll out of the cave by accident. Then Tony accidentally rolls into the Nersalia nest when Milla pulls him out and sets him free. Wait a minute, didn't you just like scream 5 seconds ago that you're going to kill him?
Kill you!
Why would you turn around now and help him? This whole series of events seems completely pointless.
Monster Hunter, proudly sponsored by Hershey's Chocolate. When surviving a nest in Nersalia, enjoy the delectable Hershey's Chocolate.
That's seriously some microwave level product placement.
Your car? Huh?
In order to escape the desert, they realize they need to team up and take down the Diablos. The The way to do it is to get a stinger from the Necilia to put the Diablos to sleep. Tony crafts a sleep arrow. Again, a nice little attention to detail when it comes to the weapons of the movie. I've noticed that most of the time when the movie tries its hand at having humor, it falls flat. Anyway, Tony trains Milla and gives her some dual blades. They go after Diablos, and again, this scene is pretty epic. Does it match the intensity and the epicness of fighting the monsters in the game? No, not really, but it's pretty epic nonetheless. I also really like some of the camera choices they use during these action set pieces. Makes it feel fresh and exciting. Anyways, they finally take down the Diablos, and I like the fact that they even carve it. On their venture, they meet some of the other monsters from the game's gallery as a little bit of fan service. We get a glimpse of the Rathalos that causes a stampede when Hellboy and company shows up to save them. Then Ron Perlman knocks out Milla after saving her and then locks her up. I'm so confused on the back and forth of helping each other. Anyway, she breaks out really easily, and we see the Palico. In the game, Palicos are like your little helpers. They cook for you and even hunt with you, collecting items along the way. And I actually really like this Palico scene because it feels straight out of the game. Ron Perlman apologizes to Milla in a very Ron Perlman way.
My friend tells me I misjudged you, but I might even owe you an apology. Just don't hold your breath.
Perlman says people from Milla's world has come into the Monster Hunter world before. He also says that the Sky Tower, he believes, services as a portal between the two worlds. The group ventures to the Sky Tower, and I seriously love the score in this movie. I might need to buy it. It's pretty awesome. Oh boy! It's Rathalos time! Rathalos is one of the most intimidating and recognizable monsters in the franchise. Hell, it's even showed up in a Smash Bros. It is the dragon of Monster Hunter. I can't tell you how many of these creatures I've slain over the years, but it was never fun because they are brutal to fight. Especially when you get into higher ranks and different colors. Rathalos and Rathian will always be the banes to my existence. Perlman's Switch Axe has cool firepower, but Rathalos is strong against fire. Why would you bring that? Also, it's a bone weapon. It shouldn't have elemental powers. With that aside, this scene is pretty epic. Unfortunately though, Milla gets knocked into a portal, sending her back into the real world, or our world I guess, the stupid world. I was surprised when I first watched this that the military aspect was finished within the first couple minutes of the film. It basically felt like they got that out of the way so they could focus on the Monster Hunter world, which I was pleasantly surprised and happy with. It felt like an unnecessary vehicle to get the main character into the world, but it was done quickly and then just moved on. When she fell through the portal, I remember thinking, every strong point this movie had is now gone out with the portal. Why would you bring it back? Why wouldn't you just keep it in the Monster Hunter world? I haven't felt so annoyed at a movie in a long time, and it's clear from the moment she went through the portal that the Rathalos came through with her as well. And guess what? It did. It starts tearing through everything, and these moments are visually stunning. The money shots here are glorious and look amazing, but I just kept thinking to myself how stupid the story is to bring it back into this world. It completely overshadows how awesome the set pieces are. What should have been a glorious and awesome scene just felt like wasted potential because the premise of what's going on just feels like, ugh. My friend said it best. This was such a cool movie until the army showed up. Milla seriously hurts the Rathalos when the hunter crew shows up and helps take it down for real. When the storm comes back, it brings with it a Gore Magala, and then the crew goes out to fight it, setting up a sequel. And we get a little cliffhanger during the mid-credits. I've never been so conflicted with a movie in my life like I have Monster Hunter, because I hate this movie. There are some really amazing scenes. The Narcilia scene, the opening set piece, I mean most of the money shots in this film are epic and beautiful. The attention to detail for the wardrobes, weapons, and monsters are amazing. The CGI is beautiful, and the score is amazing. Performances for the most part are pretty good as well, but the story is just so frustrating. A Monster Hunter movie, to me, would have just been a group of hunters hunting some monster when they're attacked by a much larger monster and have to survive and take down the big monster. Boom. That's your entire movie. Spend time developing the characters, have some great set pieces, and call it done. But the inclusion of our world and the portals dropping off characters into the Monster Hunter world just feels forced, lazy, and dumb. The troops get a flash fry in character development, and that's it, so when they all quickly die off, they just feel like cannon fodder. Honestly, I was glad when they were gone so quick. But over to the two main leads, Milla and Tony, they don't really have much depth or development either. They both feel like any other generic character. I mean, the most engrossing character moment we get is when Milla's character is just in grieving of losing her team and the horrors that she just survived. I mean, I wouldn't even remember her character's name if it wasn't for IMDb, because it just doesn't seem important. As for the Hunters cast, outside of Tony, we don't really spend any time with him. Tony is a fun character, but he is rather flat. You don't get a lot of development. Ron Perlman is fun, but only feels there to serve a purpose for exposition dump and have a few badass Perlman moments. I understand if you want to spend time focusing on the action, because that's exactly what the game does. That's fine, but you also force a lot of dialogue in moments where you're attempting to build character and it just doesn't work. Another thing that doesn't work is the humor. It felt like every time they tried for some kind of humorous moment, it came off as campy and cheesy in a bad way. It had my eyes rolling, not my gut. I also really hated the first interaction with Milla and Tony's character. It makes no sense to save them, then fight them, then save them. It's stupid. But where this movie really shines is the action set pieces. I can't get over how much fun they are and how great they look. Making a movie like Monster Hunter, you want to make sure the monsters look good, and they do. Sure, the CGI isn't bulletproof. There are moments that it's noticeable, and there are moments where the green screen is noticeable. But considering most of the CG is during the daytime, this movie looks amazing. It really does. The film feels so big and epic. The monsters have a true sense of scale to them. And considering that there's only a small amount of monsters in the film, and most of the film is just 2 characters, it still feels big, large, and epic. And it feels almost honest to the game it's based off of. I spent most of my time in Monster Hunter going through it with only one other partner, and most of the time there's only one big monster per objective. So in a way, it feels very true to the game, while also keeping a very epic feeling scope. Now let's talk about the Kongolala in the room. The fact that this film is based off of one of my favorite video games. Was I able to ignore that fact and just watch it as a movie? No, I wasn't. The film does such a great job at throwing out fan service to the fans of the game. There are so many things throughout the film that feels very honest to the series. You can tell they paid a lot of attention to detail. The scene that really stands out to me was the Palico scene. If you told me that was lifted straight from Monster Hunter World and thrown into the movie, I would completely believe you. I was constantly reminded of the game, and because I was constantly reminded of the game, I was constantly comparing the movie to the game, which is what makes the whole Portal military plot seem so frustrating to me because it feels so shoehorned in there. I do wonder if I had never played a Monster Hunter game, would that still be so distracting to me? And honestly, I'm not sure. There are some moments and some structure to the film that outside of my connection to the series still falls massively flat, but would that ending set piece still be as frustrating? Would the intro still be that jarring? And honestly, I don't know. In the end, I feel like I have to compare the film somewhat to the games because there's so much attention to detail from the games in the film. Sure, some things don't match up as well, like fighting Rathalos with fire or bone weapons having elemental, but that's small stuff that you can pass off. Paul W.S. Anderson apparently has been a huge fan of the series and has been playing the series for years. According to behind the scenes, he purchased the movie rights from Capcom years ago and have been developing the film for a long time as well. And honestly, you can tell. There's moments in the film that is far better than anything I've seen him do in the past. You can really feel that passion bleed over in some scenes for sure. I also love the fact that the reason why Milla's character uses dual blades in the movie is because that's her actual favorite weapon to play as in the game. It's little things like that that is so cool with this movie, but I just keep thinking back to the main plot and why the military was involved. I know I'm hung up on that, but it causes the most contention for me with this film.
The majority of the film is set in the Monster Hunter world, but we felt a small portion needed to be set in our world to make it relatable, and then we bring the non-gamers into the Monster Hunter world.
See, that's just fucking stupid. First off, if you want to bring non-gamers into the fold, then just write compelling characters with a good narrative and a developed world. You don't need to shoehorn in something like this. Can you imagine if something like Lord of the Rings had this Force-style isekai? It'd be stupid, but Tolkien knew with rich characters and a high-stakes plot set in a detailed environment, that would serve enough for people to engage with and connect with. And let's be real here for a minute. Most of the people that are going to see Monster Hunter are fans of the Monster Hunter games because it's a goddamn Monster Hunter movie. I watched this film with my buddy, the one that I played a ton of Monster Hunter Freedom Unite with, and our wives, and all of us thought that this was the weakest and most distracting part of the film. If your intention was to use this as a plot device to get people engaged with the film, you failed.
Dum 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 dum.
Normally when I finish a film, I think about it a little bit and come to a number out of 10 to rate it. But for Monster Hunter, I honestly didn't know. After writing this and rewatching the film, I think I'm going to go with a 6 out of 10. I know I repeat myself to ad nauseum, but there's a bunch of things here in the film that I truly love. But to quote my friend, this was a cool Monster Hunter movie until the army shows up.
Could we interest you in some chocolate?
Chocolate? Did you say chocolate? Chocolate? Chocolate! Chocolate!